Alright guys, welcome back to another video, and today I am going to be talking about the Browns. Are they a real threat to the NFL? So, to start off, let's kind of look at what they were like this season. They had Kevin Stefanski, who in his rookie year of head coaching led them to the playoffs and won Coach of the Year. Think about that. His rookie head coaching year, he had never been a head coach before, and he won Coach of the Year. That should be really crazy all on its own. But then they have the top-ranked PFF, the top PFF-ranked offensive line in the league. When you have a great offensive line, it allows you to run the ball and pass the ball so much better, and their offense really thrived this season. There are some problems on the defense, but I think this offseason they will fix them by either drafting or signing free agents or just getting the players they have now better, and of course injured players returning like Grant Delpit as their safety, and Greedy Williams. Hopefully he comes back, because if he does, and he was what he was, it looked like his rookie year a little bit, then they should be fine with cornerback alongside Denzel Ward. So now let's take a look at their offense real quick. So Nick Chubb, who has been one of the best running backs, had notched up 1,067 yards while missing 6 games. He missed 6 games, and he still notched up over 1,000 yards, along with 12 touchdowns and 150 receiving yards. He has just been an absolute monster. And then, of course, you can't forget about Kareem Hunt, his wingman, which Hunt had 841 yards, just under 1,000, wasn't that far off, 304 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns on the year. Nick Chubb having 12 touchdowns. I'd say that's a pretty good thing going, and Nick Chubb still missed 6 games. He could have had more if he would have played those games. And then, of course, Odell Beckham Jr., who was out earlier in the season, only was able to have 23 receptions on 72 yards and scoring 3 touchdowns. So it wasn't the greatest year for him, but again, he was hurt, so we kind of give him that excuse, and hopefully he'll be back next year. I really don't think the Browns should trade him. And maybe if he doesn't work out this year, then they'll have to trade him, or mid-year, it's not working out. But I think Baker Mayfield has been, doing pretty well and getting better throughout the season, that, he's matured enough where he can actually play with Odell. And Odell has mentioned that he wants to stay there. He's with one of his good friends, Jarvis Landry, who they played together in college. So I think he'll stay. I think he wants to stay. He says wants to be back better than ever. It's going to be stronger. And then you got the wide receiver core without Odell, which consists of Higgins, Hodge, Landry, and, Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones. He has been great this season as well as a rookie. Higgins put up 599 yards, 37 receptions, and 4 TDs. Not too many touchdowns, but he really came up and was huge for them in clutch positions. He was very clutch, especially in the Bengals game earlier this season. And then KhaDarel Hodge, 180 yards, 11 receptions. And Landry, who had 840 yards, 72 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. And in the playoffs, he had 2 touchdowns and 112 yards. So he played a great season, and he was one of the only players to never drop a pass this season. Think about that. He never dropped a pass this season. So I think, even if the Browns players just improved, they're a real threat. They already were a threat to the AFC this year, and they came so close to beating the Chiefs, who made the Super Bowl. So I think with some improvements, and hopefully they don't have injuries, they can be really, really good next year. And I'm hoping they come out. They do have a tougher schedule, much tougher, but I think they'll be able to meet the challenge. As this year, the one thing is, there were a lot of not so great teams that they faced, and they were close games. Well, that also, they kind of blamed it on the offense, though. They can't kind of blamed it on Baker, which, yeah, Baker made mistakes, of course, and I think more it's towards the defense, because Myles Garrett and has been great this season, notched up 12 sacks. Olivier Vernon notched up 9 sacks, and then Sheldon Richardson with 4.5 sacks. And overall in the year, the Browns had 11 interceptions, which isn't that great if you ask me. But they had a lot of injuries, plagued with injuries and COVID all season. Against the Jets, they were missing their entire wide receiver core and a lot of their offensive line. Like, they had holes in their offensive line as well. And when you have holes in your offensive line, that's not going to be good, no matter how good your quarterback is. Just watch the Super Bowl when you had Patrick Mahomes had holes in his offensive line, and he just got brutally destroyed. So, and the Tampa Bay defensive line was great. So, I mean, that was a huge part of that. But I think they can be a third of the AFC, and with all these players hopefully improving, then I think they can be. They just have to get better, get players back for injury. And Greedy's been saying he's feeling a little bit better, and hopefully he'll be able to play over the next months. Hopefully he'll be getting better and rehabbing and doing all that he needs to do to get better. So overall, the Browns may have looked like they had a great season, all things considered, and they had a rough start to the season, but they picked it up. Kevin Stefanski really transforming this team from 6-10 to 11-5 and going to the divisional round, narrowly losing to the Chiefs. So I'd say that's a win-win season, but there's many things they have to do in the offseason. They didn't sign J.J. Watt. Now, I was really excited, and I thought they would. There were some doubts about it, and now that I know what the Cardinals paid him so much money. I don't think the Browns would have paid him that much. I think that's why they didn't sign him. But J.J. Watt really seemed to want to go to Arizona, though. So, and he gets to play with Hopkins, his former teammate. There were a lot of jokes made about, they'll become the Houston Texans, and they're going to trade for Deshaun Watson, some jokes about that kind of stuff. But J.J. Watt was a target that I think the Browns were trying to get, but I'm glad they didn't sign him because that was way too much money I'd pay for. He's a veteran, and he seems like a great guy. Seems like he has a great character, but hasn't shown that he's going to be as dominant as he was. And maybe he will be, but he hasn't shown that. And he only had 5 sacks in the previous year. And he didn't get injured, though, but I think it was best that the Browns didn't sign him for that reason, that, it was unpredictable. And that if they would have signed him for like $15 million, then I think that would have been okay. But anything more than that, I wouldn't want to pay for J.J. Watt. Now, Vontae David on the Bucks, the Browns have seen interest in him. Clowney, Sherman from the cornerback position. They've been interested in a lot of guys, and I think they'll sign some good free agents, draft some good players, and be all ready next season as they improve. And I think they will be, to answer the question, I think they will be a threat to the NFL. They already seemed like a threat to the NFL last year, despite some of the losses, to the Jets. And while the Raiders aren't bad, I'd say that one they could have won. It's just the weather was horrible. That one, and even though they beat the Texans, the weather was absolutely wretched, those 2 games. And, yeah, so I think there were some wins that they could have gotten. They could have beat some teams. But overall, I think the Browns should be happy for, what they... Not super satisfied, because they got to come out and do better next season. But Kevin Stefanski said that he wants to. He's not satisfied with the offense. He wants to get it better, and that's a very good mentality from a coach. He's getting it better, and while the offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt has been really good for them this season as well, Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, he has transformed this offensive line great. And it tells you something when you have holes in your offensive line. Against the Steelers in that playoff game, they had holes. Didn't matter. It did not matter. They've had holes this season. I mean, it didn't always matter because, he's a great offensive line coach. He's really good at that. And I think they'll be a threat. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed this video, I'd recommend subscribing and turning on post notifications for new content and alerts. And I'll see you next time.